Do want to head to some breaking news that we are covering right now coming in out of the Middle East, as after 2 days of ceasefire talks in Doha, President Biden has reportedly said that he believes a deal can be reached between Israel and Hamas by the end of next week. U.S. officials referred to the 2-day talk as, quote, promising, with additional discussions expected this coming week in Cairo. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will leave for the Middle East later on tonight, where he's expected to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Monday and could make other stops as well. As Israel awaits a looming attack from Iran, the Iran-backed Hezbollah terror group in Lebanon does continue firing at northern Israel, sparking fires all over the region. Take a look right here. This is a post that is coming in from the IDF, as they did say that Hezbollah fired about 55 projectiles at northern Israel, many of them falling in open areas, igniting multiple fires. A lot to discuss here, as always, so I do want to bring in Dr. Asaf Romirowsky, the Executive Director of Scholars for Peace in the Middle East, to help break it all down. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, first off, I guess this kind of serves as a reminder that even while the ceasefire talks are underway and the war does continue in Gaza, that Hezbollah is still firing dozens upon dozens of rockets daily, pretty much, at Israel.
Yeah, and it's also important to contextualize that Hezbollah has been doing so since October 8th. I mean, the war has always been this war on two fronts. It's just been a matter of, as we've discussed over these past few months, that the focus has been on Gaza because of pressure that's coming down, obviously, to win the war in Gaza. Gaza is winnable, but Hezbollah has not been deterred in any way, shape, or form, and they've been continuing to do so. Whether or not Iran decides decides to retaliate or not retaliate for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, Hezbollah is a direct proxy of Iran. It will continue to do so, and they are still feel the need to retaliate for the assassination of Fuad Shukr, who Israel did take responsibility for. So that will continue onward, throughout. There has been actually a few people that were injured as a result of these attacks, and I'm predicting there will be a lot more of this going forward until Israel decides to actually put boots on the ground and decide to actually move Hezbollah beyond the Litani River and further beyond that, given the trajectory of where things are going.
I do want to talk about something else related to Hezbollah right now. Take a look at your screen, because Hezbollah did release a video showing a massive underground tunnel network that it calls a, quote, missile city. Is this likely, this 4-minute video here, to really intimidate the Israeli military in any way, or is it what Israel has pretty much assumed that Hezbollah is working with?
We have, the Israelis, American intelligence, we've all seen these terror tunnels and these tunnel cities. The tactic has, worth noting, of course, have been synonymous to Hamas's tactics, building these underground tunnels, using the element of surprise. Both communities in the northern part of Israel and in the southern part of Israel, for months and for years now, have been hearing drillings of these tunnels and the use of these tunnels, and that's been the biggest fear. Obviously, the most barbaric and the most, of course, egregious acts that we've seen all along, of course, relate to how 10/7 took place and the use of what is considered to be the metro of Gaza. But you have a similar situation in the north, and Hezbollah has been doing so for a significant amount of time, not to mention the fact that they have capabilities that exceed the capabilities of Hamas. So the dangers there are actually greater. There's even rumors about potential chemical warfare, chemical weapons that they might have. They definitely have what is known as PGMs, precision guidance missiles, and so they have long-range missiles. And when you're talking about between 150 and 170,000 long-range missiles that have the capability and potential of destroying towns and cities inside of Israel, that is clearly an amplification of this war, and Israel needs to prepare for that.
And you're taking a live look right there off to the left side of the screen. That is over in Haifa, Israel right now, where folks there are on alert for that possible major attack coming in from Iran. So we'll talk more about that in a second. Do want to talk about the two-day ceasefire hostage release talks that wrapped up yesterday over in Doha, because it sounds as though the U.S. is fairly optimistic that there will be a deal by the end of next week. Does it appear to you, and I've asked you this question so many times, but that we are any closer to a deal actually being reached now than we were, let's say, several weeks and months ago?
I think the hope is still there. Everybody's hoping for that. I mean, I remain cautiously optimistic, as we've discussed here before. I think that the challenge is, and this is part of the, again, Hamas is not around the table. Hamas is discussing through proxies. It's coming through mediators in Qatar and Doha, and what's happening in Cairo now, it's all coming for Egyptian mediation. The point that is worth noting, of course, as I've stated all along, is Hamas has nothing but time on its hand. It has nothing to lose, because the more and more time goes by, the more they, of course, can hold on to the lifeline of the hostages, the more and more that there is more and more mounting aggression and international condemnation of Israel for not doing anything. And Hamas is basically, for them, it's a zero-sum game. They want an entire total end of the war, of a ceasefire where they can come out of the tunnels and they can declare victory and they can once again rearm, and we continue to have basically a Hamas stand in Gaza. For the Israelis, that's not part of the calculus. They are looking for a temporary ceasefire. Their objective is still to dismantle Hamas. And Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar, and his brother Muhammad Sinwar, who's now, and Yahya Sinwar has now been appointed, to replace Ismail Haniyeh, and is now basically running the political and the military wing of Hamas. If anybody had any doubt that the political wing is any different than the military wing, should look very carefully at the actions of Sinwar. So he's in a tunnel and basically sending sticky notes, because he's not getting on a phone and he's not calling anybody through any kind of electronic communication. And so this is part of the game, the push and pull that plays out here. The assumption is, and the hope is, that there is mounting pressure that is coming from the U.S., a little bit that's coming as far as sanctions on the patrons of Hamas vis-a-vis Iran, and on the mediators as far as moving this along, that it's good for the region. And of course, the White House wants to make this happen. No doubt that if something happened, of course, now during the Democratic convention, that would be a feather in their caps. But I don't think that there's the same synonymous timeline between the Israelis and Israeli needs and the negotiators, and of course, American national interest, which is, of course, why Blinken, as you mentioned, is heading to the region, trying to bring together the parties, ameliorate some of the challenges, and see if they can move that along with any kind of potential carrots that the U.S. could potentially put out there.
And I do want to show you this live video coming in out of Tel Aviv. That is where, once again, we have these weekly protests that are ongoing here against Netanyahu and his government, and calling for a ceasefire. These are the families of the hostages who remain there in Gaza, as well as other folks. We're talking hundreds upon hundreds of people, and they tend to gather on Saturdays around this time to hold these different rallies. I do want to talk more about Secretary of State Antony Blinken and that trip over to the Middle East, where he is going to meet with Netanyahu. I did want to ask your thoughts, because we know that Iran has essentially said we are going to launch this major attack on Israel. They know that Blinken is heading there now. They would likely not launch a major attack when you have such a top-ranking U.S. official in Israel, right?
That's the hope. And there, in addition to Blinken, there are also European dignitaries who are also now in the region trying to push. So the hope is that there'll be enough kind of focus on the amount of international support for ending this war that Iran is seeing and watching this, as that they're going to hold off on trying to actually have a major attack on this issue at large. There are different theories regarding the Iranians as far as trying to launch an attack. I mean, the fact that the way Hania was taken out, and it is worthy of note that, of course, the Israelis have not taken actual responsibility for the taking out of Hania, but was done in a very sophisticated way. We know it was done by remote control, the fact that they put down the explosives months before that in a compound of the Iranian Guard. I mean, they had phenomenal intelligence. This was a major success when and if the Israelis take responsibility for this. That being said, the Iranians are playing this very, very carefully, and they are using their proxies. I mean, this is a war, I would say 7 fronts. You can go even beyond the 7 fronts that Israel is fighting, all coming out of the axis of Iran. So they have enough proxies on the ground, while in the meantime trying to play the element of surprise, which they do. Again, trying to play this usual psychological warfare. We don't know when it's coming. It might be coming. The fact of the matter is, Israel has been at war since October. One way or another, this war needs to continue on. Iran has always been pulling the strings behind the scenes. They have blood on their hands. We've seen similar attacks that we saw back in April. So again, the Israelis are preparing for any potential scenario that could take place here. The goal of the Europeans and, of course, Blinken being in the region is trying to calm all parties down with the idea of trying to move along, creating calm in the region, and trying to create a cessation of violence. I don't see that happening, but there is a great deal of focus given the sensitivity vis-a-vis the timing, that of course every day that goes by, the risk of not bringing back hostages alive continues to grow.
My last question here before I let you go. Something of note is that Abbas, the Palestinian Authority president, has said that he's actually going to travel over to Gaza. He will be there in the war zone. How significant is that, considering my understanding is that Abbas has not actually visited Gaza since maybe back in 2007?
You're right. It's significant, but it's also worthy of note that what led to all of this, that this week, Abbas also made a speech and a visit to the Turkish parliament where he said, gave blessings and salutations in the honor of memory of Ismail Haniyeh, and the fact that he also declared clearly that Palestine constitutes a replacement of Israel. And the fact of the matter is, again, which is trying to unite the parties, that Palestine, according to his narrative, cannot be Palestine without Gaza. So the political campaigning that you see here playing out with Mahmoud Abbas, who basically is in his 80s and is still sitting as the leader, weak leader, I would argue, of the Palestinian Authority. There is clearly a campaigning out here, but again, showing the synonymous ideologies between the PLO and Hamas when it comes to what they perceive to be the greater Palestinian narrative. And that's exactly what he's been pushing. So again, the idea of him trying to garner support from his allies, namely the Turks, and before he was in Turkey, he was also in Russia. Again, you're seeing the kind of company that he keeps and the kind of messaging that he's putting out there, even in his 80s, and of course, no thought about any kind of succession plan. Abbas is basically now serving close to 20 years of a 4-year term, so there's not really any discussion about moving along what will be the next leadership. So he's garnering that leadership from the younger segment of Hamas.
All right, Dr. Asaf Romirowsky, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and break it all down. Obviously, a lot of topics discussed there, but anything you want to add before I let you go?
No, everything is changing as always, but I'm always happy to come back.
All right, thank you so much for being here. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
And I do want to bring you to this breaking news. This post just coming in from Axios's Barak Ravid, who says Israeli Prime Minister's office says Israeli negotiators briefed Netanyahu that they have careful optimism about the possibility of moving forward with the hostage deal based on that new U.S. proposal. Again, it does appear that we are going to have more talks that will continue next week over in Cairo. So we'll keep you posted on all of that right here on Live Now from Fox.